Hello guys, and welcome back to Strategic Command World War II World at War. In the last episode, I was sleep deprived, and those dastardly Japanese took advantage of the situation and decided to invade the Pacific. It was quite crazy. I have done a lot of researching and trying to learn more about the game throughout this playthrough, and also in the past 12 plus hours, as I've also been trying to get some sleep. That didn't go too well, the sleep part, but the research part went pretty well. So I learned that all these special forces we were seeing pop out from the Japanese, these were all given to them for free, and a player would also get these special forces, the ones that were securing all these islands here. All of that is just stuff they get spawned in near the historical invasion of the Pacific that are just conveniently very useful for invading the Pacific. Now, things like this core and this anti-air, I think this is separate. I think this is stuff they made or was just already in Japan and that they chose to send out. Meaning, this is not the lightest a Japanese invasion could have been. There's also this artillery. Yeah, two special forces down here. It's not the lightest this invasion could have been, but it probably could have been a lot heavier if China was not slaughtering their units. Since this is my learning playthrough, I do still feel it right to inform you guys of things that I learn in the game. For example, last turn I learned that we could actually transport, not by being on a town connected to a port, but just being adjacent to the port in general. That is very important information that, had I known, I would have been able to evacuate Libya so much faster than I did. I learned that the Allied AI does have scripting for Operation Torch to invade Vichy, North Africa. However, I don't think there's like a player script to encourage it. And I also don't yet know if Germany will invade Vichy, which the term for would be Case Anton. And so I'm actually asking about that on the Steam forums for this game, even though I'm playing it on GOG, to figure that out. I have been stretched thin with the UK since the start of this, and resultingly, Australia is in no position for war. Having seen how this situation can unfold, I would never do this against a player. I would make sure Australia, at the very least, if not all of this, is as high up in reinforcement as it can get. Maybe not as soon as possible, but just, before the oil embargo kicks in. But I did not. So that means we're less able to respond in the Pacific, which is unfortunate because nothing was actually spawned in to directly assist with Port Moresby. However, the Kanga special forces from Australia here have been given to us. So I'm going to go ahead and plop those down next to the port near Sydney. I also learned I moved the first corps off of Sydney to put the third corps there, and then I just never adjusted from that point on. I guess I'll just take it and move it up near Brisbane, pretty much. Now, what I really wish I had done, because I just didn't pay attention to the Australian and New Zealand fleets at all, because I was just like, well, I don't have money to repair them. But one thing I wish I had paid attention to, and that I'll know very much going forward into any PvPs, is due to just the lack of Australia. And I was saying you'd have to either sail all these to America, or you'd have to sail them west. And I'm thinking what I usually do in games like this, I usually sail them west, and I had all the time in the world to do this in a safe manner. Now I don't, because it's dangerous. So unfortunately, this is going to have to be done in a very unsafe manner. I can't just go west like this. I can, and cross my fingers. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to unify the British fleet in the Pacific, which I just wish I had done so much earlier. And to do this, oh god, some of these things are so injured, I don't even want to send them out without getting them some kind of reinforcement to begin with. Somewhat related, because it's on the topic of the UK, I would have done Ethiopia completely differently with the information I have now as well. I don't think I needed to send any Indians here whatsoever. There was definitely another more efficient way to do this that would have required a little more investment from the UK, but would have worked out a lot more efficiently and allowed me to free up the Indians to go to Northern Africa, which didn't matter here because we didn't fight Rommel, or just send them somewhere else in general, which is going to be very useful information for when I do get into a PvP. Now, okay, so I am still afraid to send a lot of these things. We do need to send them west if we want to actually get them fully up to strength. So tell you what I'll do. I'll put in what money it takes to get them up to 8, which is the highest they can get where they are right now. And then I'm going to sail them west the long way and try to get them up to India, where the British fleet coming from Europe is going to be spawning in over this and the next year. Thankfully, I don't really have to be in a rush because it's going to take time for America to get their Pacific fleet looking very well at all. So with that in mind, I can move slowly and steadily and try to be safe about what I'm doing here. For all we know, there could be, and very likely is, somewhere around here, Japanese submarines, or they could be over east. I know the Japs had a good amount of submarines that we're probably going to have to worry about. Another thing I wish I just knew is not to waste the fucking French money. Or if that I had moved it earlier. We're going to go ahead and reinforce the Pete garrison. We might as well, even though we know it won't survive against anything landing here. My inaction over here has put us in a little bit more difficult of a situation than we otherwise needed to be. This is the first day, I think, the first month, where these convoy routes would be in danger from the Japs. So one thing I'm realizing I can do is, if I really, really want to know, because I'm going to try to come through here entirely to push west. If I really, really want to know if there's any Japanese here, I could just wait a turn. And then if there's any along this whole path, I will know. Because they will end up being detected as they raid. Now, we'll lose MPPs because of that, but... Now, speaking of MPPs, I don't remember if I mentioned this in the last episode, but it's something I kind of looked into. So, America's earning right now, and can earn in the long run, a potential 1,000 MPPs every turn. This is huge. The plunder of Paris, while forming Vichy, was 1,000 MPPs. Italy is only currently making something like 200 MPPs a turn. They were making 100 earlier on, before they got Paris and a bunch of other things, I guess. Japan was making something like 300 for most of this, thanks to all their convoys and stuff. They'll probably be back up to that soon when they take the DEI. And Germany has worked their way up to making something like 500, maybe up to 600 MPPs a turn. Combine all that, and you have barely equaled the MPP production of just America. Not to mention the fact that the Soviets are making like, what, 400 to 500 a turn by themselves. The UK is making over 300, including all their colonies. And, you know, moving all the money from America to the UK, and the UK to the USSR, and then India making a little over 100 a turn, and then sending 25% of that over to the UK. China making about 200, or it was something like 160, but it's getting up as we take things back. And then getting 60 for free for a one-time investment from America into the Hanoi Kunming Railroad. Holy shit. I remember I was saying earlier in the game how China and the Allies, they had MPPs at their advantage in the long run. I didn't realize in this game how much of that came from just America once America was in the war. This situation is crazy. It's no wonder the victory conditions for the Axis don't even involve America, because America is just this great power that have to be really amazing to fucking take, or just have America be shipping so much stuff overseas that they just can't defend themselves. Now, we did get a new unit for India, which I'm going to deploy. Now, I know I don't need to dedicate them to the city. I can just stack up around a city to transport them. That's actually really handy information that I wish I knew the whole game. But, you know, better that I know now. Everything from India is going to continue sailing to Europe, because the Indians, well, Europe/Africa, because the Indians are going to be helping the UK in this theater, since there is a lot of progress to be made in this theater. And I would like the Indians to take a large portion of the responsibility, or as much as they can. I definitely could have used them more efficiently than I have. There could be Indians already in Greece, but there are not, due to just my decisions. I'll play it differently next time I play Allies. I did learn that apparently, basically the prerequisite for Thailand to join the Axis, like for free, and there is one, involves the fall of Hong Kong. Apparently, if Hong Kong falls, then Thailand has like a % chance every turn to just join the Axis for free under Japan. So we're going to definitely go ahead and reinforce the Hong Kong garrison up to full, definitely get that shit upgraded because we're going to want to make sure that that shit's good to go. Now, we do need to look at other things regarding the UK before we figure out exactly how much we're going to commit anywhere else. Because, again, UK stretched pretty thin right now, but now that America's money will be flowing, even while sending a large portion of the UK's money to the USSR, in order to help them hold on and to be the main front, distracting and killing, hopefully, Germans and all the rest of the European axis, we're not going to have enough money one way or another, but we definitely have the ability to make it count. So I'm going to resume my strategic bombing campaigns just to make sure these places stay with like no supply and to try to lure out enemy escorts as we have just done here. We took some damage on our fighters. We dealt damage to the enemy supply there, got the MPPs back down to 0. We'll do the same here. This is not very good for keeping MPPs out of their hands. Again, I'm really just trying to lure out the enemy planes more than anything and just kind of keep track of the area. That's pretty much that. There's still probably the Italians here to be concerned about. The carriers can still fly protection, however, and I have moved fighters forward specifically to fight the enemy fighters. So we're gonna go ahead and give that some effort. Oh, there's actually some more German fighters that have arrived. Interesting. And they must be fairly upgraded because I don't think we dealt any damage at all to them with that attack. So that was, I guess, pretty wasteful. At the very least, escorted operations could still see success. So I'm going to go ahead and tack bomb anyway. We have plenty of planes in the region. That dealt some damage, yeah. So that's when you don't attack the fighters, there will be less fighters overall. The bombers can take some damage. But we did go ahead and do something. Doesn't look like much. We did something. We weakened them enough that our Rupert Force Special Forces could go ahead and attack again and hopefully deal some damage. Yeah, we dealt 2 more damage. We took none again. They're down to only 5 strength. Last turn, they didn't even bother replenishing, which has me believe the Italians are definitely stretched thin. There is a pesky submarine that is on the line where all of our convoys connect up here. And unfortunately, that submarine, like, it could do way more damage than just taking a few MPPs from Egypt. So we're going to go try to intercept it with the Montgomery. Looks like we succeeded. Enemy contact. We took 6 damage. And we dealt 5 damage. It's crazy sometimes how the damage just kind of stacks up like that. We can go ahead and cruise, naval cruise over there to kind of assert our presence, but we won't be able to attack. And I think I would very much like to assert my presence over there. We'll send the Bulldog down there as well. A bunch of British ships to go scare this enemy destroyer off, the submarine. I don't think it could do much damage more to the Montgomery, so there's that much at least. The Columbia needs to get somewhere that it can actually replenish itself. I'd rather not walk into a trap unprepared, so we're just going to have it move at normal speeds. The Lancaster can keep an eye down here by America, and the Mohawk can keep an eye over here, just further up the line, I guess. We'll get a little further south, but leave it about where the Columbia is right now. I think the battle for the Atlantic with the destroyers is probably one of the most important things that we're actually doing here, so I'm going to go ahead and reinforce all of these destroyers that I put into port to get a little bit more of their strength back. They take priority over just about everything that I'm doing here, because the Axis is not going to push us out of here, nor do we have the money to really push them out right now. These tanks are in a situation. It would take most of my remaining MPPs to get them back up to strength. So rather than spend all those MPPs getting them back up to strength, I'm just going to drive them down to Athens, where they will be safe to just chill out for a moment and not worry about this hex as much. I mean, they're going to come into a whole bunch of Greeks here that are sitting here kind of ready and waiting for them. We, without any bombing whatsoever, which I don't even know if that would be smart to do due to the lack of fighter support here, are capable of attacking and dealing pretty good damage to the enemy core here. Due to the sheer amount of enemy air we've seen here recently, I will probably avoid doing anything like that. We still have a little ways until the Greek fighters arrive, but since this enemy core is so weak, we might as well just attack normally with our land forces, because we're not really going to suffer much of any losses, and voila, what do you know, we killed the enemy core. Looks like the Brits actually got infantry weapons level 2. That's pretty big and important. although we don't have the money to assign it to most anybody, especially not the capability to assign it to anyone on the front, just because if you're on the front, you can't have that kind of stuff assigned to begin with. But that'll be important to start rolling out, and it can really change the land conflicts that the UK is involved in here. Yeah, another thing I learned is that, you know how I'm always careful about where I place naval units when near land? I don't have to be, because aside from air, like, land units can only hit naval units if they're in dock. So that's something I wish I knew already. We're going to move the special forces up to take the position of the enemy unit that we have just destroyed. We're going to send the Desert Field Artillery forward into a very good position where it will be able to attack the Albanian Corps and anything that comes down here up to the Greek forces. Looking back down at Ethiopia, we're going to take the first heavy artillery and finally begin its bombardment on the Abyssinia Corps. We've dealt some of their entrenchment damage, which is good, opens them up to being hurt more. We also have this garrison to finish off. We'll send the Sudan Defense Force Corps to attack. Dealt 4 damage, took 1, unfortunately. However, we can finish it off here with the 1st South African Corps. Took a national morale bonus from that. March in with the Sudan Defense Force Corps, which is very good, very nice. We'll continue moving. We can move up the Platte HQ. We'll continue moving, and we'll try to fully encircle our opponent here, because that can help with supply and reducing the enemy supply. Don't know if we'll even need to allocate that much, to be honest. But we'll continue trying to surround him. The Gurkhas are going to move in as well. Another thing I learned, if you move and then attack, your attack will be weaker. I kind of picked that up, which is why my attack strategy changed over in China. However, I only just now learned that it is a mechanic specifically. I wasn't fully aware of that. Let's see. So this is not fully up to strength, but it shouldn't need to be to actually finish off this unit. So we'll take the BAI army, and we'll have them strike out first. Everything's set to pretty much do the same amount of damage. So we'll start with the Indians, attack first. I'd rather the Indians take damage than the British at this point, because the British need their MPPs. And they need to send the USSR MPPs. It's quite a cycle. We'll attack with the Gurkha Special Forces. Take some damage, that's fine. Now let's attack, even though we weren't supposed to take any damage there, we just got completely unlucky. We'll attack with the 2nd South African Corps as well. Dealt another damage, took no damage. Alright, that's about what I would have wanted, is to prevent more damage to the South African Corps, dealing damage to the Abyssinia Corps, reducing their entrenchment down to 0, especially with heavy artillery. Ethiopia, pretty much guaranteed to fall. The HQ here, pretty much guaranteed to die, so that's good. The DEI is also technically the UK's problem, because they're working off UK money, right? Yeah. So that's unfortunate. Pretty much almost nothing here we can guarantee to live. We'll take this submarine at least, and we'll sail it over. Oh god! Took 1 damage. Dealt no damage, damn, to a fucking carrier. I feel like I might as well just, like, march out and attack the carrier. We're gonna take more damage than we're gonna deal. However, for a light cruiser that we're just gonna lose anyway, dealing damage to a Japanese carrier that got too close to the coast seems like a complete win. I have 143 MPPs remaining as the UK. I've moved basically every destroyer and etc. that I want to. Now, for the remaining MPPs, I think we really need to start putting it into getting Australia and New Zealand ready for war, in case the Japanese get offensive down here. So let's go ahead and start just trying to reinforce, which is only going to let us go up to 8 due to supply in a lot of these locations. All the corps and etc. that are chilling out here. 8 is better than nothing. Technically, they can supply up to full if I just get them closer to Canberra, where we have an HQ providing a whole bunch of supply, or I get the HQ to move down to them. Either way, could be a lot better. 8 is fine for defense, however. And then I can operationally move anything if, like, the North Coast gets threatened or landed on or anything like that. Well, actually, no, because this is not connected by rail. But that's exactly what makes losing this not so bad, technically. 46 more MPPs as the UK. Will put that into reinforcing the 2nd Expedition Force Corps over here in New Zealand. Up to 8. Again, the highest we can get it with the supply there, but at least these places will have some sort of operational defense, which would be so very handy. I don't know if the Japanese AI will play that aggressively. it would certainly be pushing beyond the reach of their capabilities with how much of their land power that they've lost. I've deemed getting all this up to snuff to be worth more to me right now than getting anything purchased or built or reassigning this diplomacy chit to Finland. We still have a 20% chance per turn to move it anyway. And anything in Europe that I could be doing, like upgrading weapons, this is just more important to me right now. The Soviets should be a big enough distraction that I don't need to pay attention into Europe as much anymore. Still things I can accomplish there, but right now, like, the air coverage over France is getting insane. But that's good, because that means these fronts are doing their job. I never dreamed that we could actually push and defeat the enemies here. What I believe I said was that we could hopefully distract them and get units off the USSR front, which seems to be going basically according to plan, even though there's a fuck ton of units down here in the south, which, wow. The north is going pretty slowly. The north is going really slowly. However, the south, I don't know if it's as subject to the winter, but the winter is slowing them down. It may not be hurting them with that event I was imagining with fire. It's definitely slowing them down, though, and we are also slowing them down just by having these fronts open, even if we're not committing anything to them. Hopefully, this will be able to change, but if I want to keep funding the USSR to max and investing in their potential, then the UK is going to have to take a little bit of a back seat in terms of offensive operations by themselves. Now for America proper, we have quite the situation here, but I do know, I have seen, despite this large naval presence, the AI has split its navy historically between the DEI and Hawaii. So even though what I have here is nothing significant, it doesn't need to be. We might lose some of it sailing over here. However, we do have an opportunity to protect Hawaii in certain ways. Now, there's also other ways I'm going to try to protect Hawaii. There's a lot of naval units in very shitty situations right now that's just like really need a GTFO. For example, one that we can't save is the Marblehead light cruiser. It's stuck here. The enemy zones of control completely stop me from being able to move it out. So it's going to die. There's nothing that I can do. I'm just going to basically have it sit here and accept its fate. We can go ahead and for literally no reason attack this enemy artillery. But as you can see, that doesn't do anything, and we can't do anything. The Wainwright HQ here is pretty much just gonna die. Thankfully, looking at American forces out here, the Far East Air Force fighters are alive in Davao. There's no point trying to hold this for the Philippines. The Philippines are just impossible to defend in this game because you don't have the capability to prepare a defense for them, unfortunately. So we're going to operate the Far East Air Force fighters rather than flying them into the DEI where they can go DIE. I'm going to go ahead and operate them, and we're going to send them to Hawaii, actually. Wait, where's Hawaii? Hawaii's up here. We're going to send them to Hawaii. Namely, we're going to send them over here at Hawaii, where they should be able to escort anything that happens over here, which is good. We're going to reinforce the 2nd Air Force fighters here. A lot of MPPs, but we want them to be up to snuff because the battle's not done here. We're going to reinforce the Oklahoma battleship because maybe there's a chance that we don't lose it. And that's not it. I have more to do. Namely, we're going to take the Somers destroyer, we're going to sail it up to this little gap. And we're going to completely try to block the enemies from getting through here with basically just a single destroyer. The Wainwright destroyer, Wainwright, is going to go sail up north to the Hawaiian Islands here, kind of guarding along this entryway. This Maryland battleship is going forward, but it's going to go into the Hilo port and gets a little bit of extra defense against enemy flying units here. So we're going to take now the Enterprise carrier, and we're going to sail that up. And it has decent enough range to guard everything from there. Very good. We have 2 more carriers, and they're basically all going to be positioned, I think you can see what I'm doing here, behind Hawaii and behind this destroyer. So we're going to go ahead with the Wasp carrier, and we're going to go ahead with the Lexington carrier, and position everything over here as like this massive net of fighter support, essentially. I'm hoping to at least save the Oklahoma battleship and the New Orleans heavy cruiser with the fighter power I have here, maybe convince the Japanese to leave. We do also have the Tuscaloosa heavy cruiser as well. Not a whole lot we can do with that. It does have some anti-air capability, but Again, still not a whole lot we can do with that. There's a good enough net of fighter coverage here anyway that I will just kind of go ahead and sail this up so that it's in the formation. You know, I'll sail it up behind just in case anything comes from the rear, although it's not going to do too much guarding from right there. Now, I'm going to operate the first medium bombers, 52 MPPs, very expensive, but I believe in my plan. We're going to send the first medium bombers right here. And we're going to do the same thing with the TAC bombers that we have, the 5th tactical bombers, 52 MPPs, over to Hawaii. We're going to go place them right here. And my goal is, if the enemies choose to stay and engage, the sheer amount of fighter and now bomber support, plus the presence of at least some naval units, will make it very deadly for them. Even if we lose the Somers Destroyer, I feel like this will completely be worth it. As for the entirety of this super upgraded Atlantic fleet, I'm sticking with my guns. I'm going to send all of this stuff to the Pacific, and we're in a rush, so we're going to go ahead and naval cruise everything. There shouldn't be any Japs on this side of the map. A player might be that devious, but an AI, almost certainly not. So we're going to go ahead here, get everything going through the Panama Canal that we can. Naval cruise, naval cruise, naval cruise, just hurry it up. This group doesn't look like they're getting past the canal itself, however, unfortunately. This is mostly like cruisers, battleships, and there's like one destroyer. So it's not going to be the most useful fleet in a situation where it's like mainly up to destroyers and aircraft carriers. But if a battleship gets in close, it can do some pretty heavy damage. So I wouldn't count this stuff out just yet. We do have the Aylwin Destroyer. Now this is going to be quite interesting. I have a couple choices with this. I can try to unify it with the American fleet here, or I can try to send it down in case we need any ASW over here by Japan, which I don't know if we're going to. We don't have a lot of capability to do that here already by default, but if we do need to, then I can just upgrade the destroyers here, leave everything else in port, and just further delay the UK from getting their stuff unified and up to snuff. It means I can save money in the long run if that situation happens, but of course it's not ideal. As much as I would like to send this north, this is the only destroyer we have down here, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sail this southwest, and we're going to go that way just in case there ends up being something that we have to worry about in terms of subs that will get in our way. It could at least do something, right? It only has one ASW, but it could at least do something. We'll reinforce the Chicago Heavy Cruiser over here at American Samoa, just so that when we start moving it, it has something to work with here. We have this sub, which is now in a... Well, this port is still ours, apparently, but we've lost the place that it belongs to. So I just kind of want to get this shit out of Dodge. Probably, like, naval cruise this shit out of Dodge, ASAP kind of shit. Midway's still here, thankfully. I don't know if we're going to be able to hold Midway. We do have a sub that can do something. We want to play it safe, so I will use it, though. We're going to take it to the north side here. There's a battleship with no ASW whatsoever, but we know that it's here. The damage we can do against it is nothing great. In fact, it's even negative, basically. Even though the enemy battleship does not have ASW, just because our subs are not that great. They haven't been upgraded. We don't have the upgrade for them yet. I kind of put that off. I didn't know we would get any subs. I didn't know we'd get all these ships we got. But I'm going to go ahead and attack it anyway. We deal 1 damage. We take 3 damage. It's even worse than it said would happen. Not the best, but I'm not seeing any destroyers over here that can do much about me doing anything over here. We're going to naval cruise this other sub just up to Midway, so it can hopefully repair in safety. I'm just trying to do anything I can to scare this fleet away or weaken it so that we can do damage. America is pretty much outproducing or matching the production of the entire Axis combined, so I'm not worried about being a little inefficient here. I do have 5 diplomacy chits I really want to spend for America, but there's still other things that I need to do. For example, we're going to operate the 12th Air Force fighters out towards Hawaii as well. Let's see. We still have good escort range over everything here. Okay, good. This is perfect then. We'll also take the 1st Air Force fighters, operate them, and send them out here in addition. And this can't escort as much, but now we have complete, just overwhelming fighter firepower here to hurt the enemies with. We have 77 remaining. We might as well just keep it going into military stuff. The 2nd Marine Division Special Forces here is not on a hex where it can actually get its reinforcements up, so we'll just give it infantry weapons and anti-aircraft defense for now, especially with the enemy air being present. We have 49 MPPs remaining. I'll go ahead and take that to reinforce the 1 reinforcement that supply allows MacArthur to recover right now. We have 34 MPPs remaining. I guess it wouldn't hurt greatly to go ahead and upgrade the Panama Canal garrison. Well, the Panama garrison, but still, anything that Japs trying to land in Panama, which I doubt they will, but still, it's very cheap to give them upgrades if they're the first line of defense there. But with that, we have a nice full episode. The war in the Pacific has begun, and I believe I will win it. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a lot longer than I thought, given what I'm seeing. However, the Japanese land forces are so inhibited by this point in the war due to how well China did that I have good hopes for the whole war. On the next episode, we'll deal with the rest of these, including the Soviets, and see where 1942 takes us. But for now, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.